Welcome back to Surviving and Thriving, where we share with you the things that we have learned as we have transitioned our family from struggling to survive disease to thrive and right smack dab in the midst of it, in the hopes that something that we share with you will help you, enlighten you, and encourage you as you transition your family from struggling to survive disease to thriving right smack dab in the midst of it. Well, we're going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about your money, 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 money. This fly is getting on my nerves. Money. Now, what I'm going to share with you, you might not like some of it, and I'm going to tell you that to do it is not going to feel good, but it's worth it in the end. The freedom that you have in the end, the control over your life that you have in the end, the stress-free atmosphere that you have in your marriage, in your life. It helps you to be a better mother, a better father, a better person when you don't have the stress of finances on your life. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. Now, first, let me preface it with this. So we had been some millions of dollars in debt and decided to get out of debt. And we had started getting rid of some stuff and paying off some stuff. And by the time I sat down to count up how much we owed, 1.4 million. And we set about trying to get out of debt. Somebody left the door open as fly. So we had decided to start getting out of debt, and we didn't have Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey was around, but we didn't use Dave Ramsey at that time. I like Dave Ramsey, right? And I suggest Dave Ramsey to people, but I'm going to share with you what my experiences. It was just me, my husband, and Jesus. It was just me, my husband, and the Word of God. And this is how we got out and some of the things that we learned. Now, let me tell you, when we were getting out, I was going through health issues. It didn't have a name. We didn't know what it was. I was just struggling, trying to make it through. By the time that it had a name and we knew what it was, and we were thrown into severe blown crisis mode for some years straight, we were already out of debt. Now, it was good for my family because it allowed my husband to be there to take care of me and to keep our family together. Two things that I don't think that would have been happening if we were in debt. And I might not be here because I needed 24-hour care from my husband. I needed somebody who actually loved me and cared about me to give me the 24-hour care and the kind of care that I needed to be able to jump up and take me where I needed to go when I needed to save my life. Okay. But I can also tell you that my marriage is a lot easier and a lot better because we don't have that stress. We're both able to be who God has called us to be because we don't have the stress of debt. So I can be a better parent, a better mother, a better wife, a better all of that, right? Because we don't have it. And we have the freedom of our time, control of our life, control over our time, which we did not have when we were $1 million in debt. We had everything that looked good, and people would look at us and think, ooh, they got it going on, but they didn't understand the stress, and they didn't know what we were going through. So now everything I have, I own outright. Pay cash for it. Can't nobody take it from me. Okay. We don't buy unless we can afford it. We save up until we can get it. We do without if we don't need it. Okay. So I'm going to share with you a couple little things real quick. I'm not going to go too much in detail or too in depth in it, but you take what's good for you. Okay. And the rest you can just let lie where it's at. Okay. But wisdom will say, put it in your back pocket and live a little bit and let what's in your back pocket sit there until you find out if you need it or not, or if it applies or not. Okay. Now everybody's situation is different. I'm going to share with you mine and what I've learned. Okay. So early on, and we've been debt free. I don't know. I haven't counted it up. 12, 13, 14 years now, somewhere around there. I can go back and figure it out, but I didn't think to do that before I started. So here we go. What we got early on was everything in the world, especially here in the United States, the system is set up to go backwards, right? Everything is backwards. So if the world is doing it, you want to do opposite. So the revelation we got was to reverse the reverse. Okay. So if the world is telling you the system is set up to go in debt leads to some oppression and all kind of other crazy stuff. And we didn't want any of that. So we didn't want to do what was that. We needed to turn it around and reverse the reverse so that we can move forward in life. And for us, part of that was the getting out of the debt. Okay. So if you notice, life is cyclical. Bills are cyclical. Comes around in cycles, right? You pay that rent this month, it's gonna come back next month. You pay that mortgage this month, it's gonna come back next month. You pay that car note this month, it's gonna come back next month. It cycles around. It's cyclical, right? So in order for us to get out, what we saw was there's no tiptoeing out, there's no sneaking out. You don't slide out and just happen to fall upon coming out. You got to be determined, and you got to bust out and break out. You got to bust through that cycle. You got to break that cycle, put the brakes on it, and turn it in the other direction. So now you're moving forward. Now you're progressing. Now you have ownership, right? And now we're moving into real profits and real ownership, okay? And so that's the revelation we got, and we moved off on from there, okay? So how did we do that? Well, I'm not going to give you all the examples and tell you what we did, but I'm going to give you the basic principles. The number one thing we knew was that we need to increase our input and decrease our output. We needed to increase our income and decrease what was going out. And at times when we couldn't increase the income, we definitely knew we needed to be drastic on decreasing what went out. So that means that we had to start selling off land, selling off property, selling off stuff, right? And on a lot of that stuff, we did not make a profit on, but we got it off our backs, we got it off our books, and that was a lot of stress relief. So you got to balance out them numbers, okay? And you want to get to where you can pay off as much as you possibly can. Now, I know some say pay off the big stuff first and some say pay off the little stuff first. We paid off whatever we could. If it was a lot of little stuff, we paid that off so we can put it on the big stuff. If we got a big, lump sum of money and that matched the big bill, we paid off that big bill. We just paid off what we could pay off so that we could get that monkey off our back. But you got to increase your income and decrease your output. For us, we had to look around and we got rid of all unnecessary things. Cell phones are not necessary. I still have my same landline that I had decades ago, okay? Even though I have a cell phone now, but I still have my landline. So we got rid of cell phones. And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't easy. It's hard to run a real estate company when you don't have a cell phone. But I'm going to give you a little bit of wisdom and tell you a little insight on life. When you can learn to do without all the tools and gadgets and still be productive, when you get them tools and gadgets, you're dangerous. Let me tell you from experience. So when we did start going back and using cell phones and stuff, let me tell you, we were quite powerful and quite dangerous with those cell phones, and we produced at a higher rate because we learned how to function without all the doodads and the gadgets and to make it work. So we started getting rid of a lot of stuff. We got rid of cable. We stopped eating out. The dollar store, y'all, was a luxury. I remember when I was praying and believe God to go and have $5 to go to the dollar store, right? And that was huge. I was splurging. Woo, I was rich. I felt like I was rich in the dollar store with a $5 bill, y'all. But we cut all that stuff out. We didn't see restaurants for I don't know how long. We weren't buying new clothes. We weren't buying new anything, okay? This Thanksgiving, I did a French cut rack of lamb, crown lamb, and I did a turkey. That's because I'm debt free and God blessed me like that. But I'm going to tell you, back then, we was just eating quarters. Because you can get a bag of quarters for $3.75. You can feed your family for a while, right? So we weren't eating out and we weren't spending a lot of money on food, okay? We didn't go out and buy pies. If we wanted a pie, I learned how to make a pie. I learned how to make pie crust and all that kind of stuff because I just got the basics. I got flour, I got sugar, I got all that stuff, and anything we needed had to come from there because we couldn't really afford to spend the money on the other things because we were trying to get out of debt. So you want to decrease your output and increase your input. That's really, really, really important. Let me see. What else did I say I want to tell you here? So you get rid of all unnecessary things like cable, things like that, services you don't need. We stop taking our clothes to the cleaners. You better pull out that iron and get started or buy you a steamer because you can get a lot more out of it than having to take your stuff to the cleaners all the time. If we didn't have the money for it, y'all, we just didn't get it. We saved up for everything we wanted. So there were times we didn't have a couch. There were times when, we didn't have mattresses or the mattresses we had were pretty jacked up. Now I'm going to tell you, it's going to look like to other people in the world that you're moving slow. Okay. And it seems like they're moving faster. But on the back end, when you come out of it, right? You're gone and you're zooming, and everything you got is yours. Where all those other people got stresses and problems and issues because they don't own anything they got, and their family life got a lot of stress that's unnecessary. So it's going to be worth it. You're going to move slow, but you're not on shaky ground. Debt is shaky ground. You're going to be sure-footed on solid ground, and you're moving forward, right? All that debt, it gives the illusion of moving forward, but you're really moving backwards. You're only moving forward when you have real ownership, right? When it's really your cash, really your money, really your property, okay? So we started buying a lot of things. Here's another thing. Start buying a lot of your things on alternative market, secondhand markets. Look at your estate sales. Look at your garage sales. Look at OfferUp and Craigslist and all that other stuff. Just because you're buying the secondhand market does not mean that you can't get good quality. Look for good quality. When you use your dollars wisely. You don't spend your money on junk, and you don't spend your money on things that you can eat and consume. You spend your money on things, you invest your money on things that can last, okay? So you can get really good stuff on secondhand market. The other thing is, as part of that, remember I told you need to increase what you got? Today's society, we got this internet, and there's all these mediums that you can go and sell stuff on. Use it. It works for you. It's kind of like a passive way of actually making a lot of money. I'm saying kind of like, because the more aggressive you are in it, the more you're going to be able to make money. But for those of you who feel like that's not something you can do, take a picture of it, put it on there, sell it. Eventually it'll sell, right? But you can do that. You can sell a lot of stuff. Now, here's the secret, and here's the key. Ready? You make your money on your buy, not on your sell. Your profit is in your buying, okay? You can buy good quality things. You can buy a lot of things that you can sell, things that you can keep, and not pay retail for. We very rarely pay retail. For most things, we don't pay retail for it. And we still get good, nice quality things, right? Now, there may be a season you want to get the best that your money can buy. And the best doesn't always mean most expensive. So sometimes you may be in a season where you can't really go get those dressers with the dovetails on it. You might got to get something that's plywood, but get the best that your money can buy that's going to last the longest. And then when you get to a place, you want to get to a place where you buy them good quality stuff that can last the generations, not stuff that you're going to have to throw away, in a couple years or whatever like that. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're getting really good quality stuff. That also means you do without. Okay, you do without until you can save up and get what you want or get what you need. The whole goal of getting out of debt, you guys, because remember I told you it's cyclical, right? Is when you're in the debt and you're having all these financial problems, you want to move from not having enough, and it's a process, and it takes a different amount of time for a different amount of people, okay? And it can take years depending upon your situation. You want to go from getting out of not having enough, where you're behind on your bills all the time and they just keep racking up, right? So you want to get from there, and it's a slow progression sometimes, and it can be a faster progression depending on you, to the place where you're at just enough. You got just enough to pay everything. You out of the red, you just at zero. It comes in, it goes out, but everything is covered, right? And you move from there to you have just a little bit left. You're like, hey, I got a little bit left. For me, it was, I can go to the dollar store, right? So you have a little bit left, and eventually it gets you to a place where you have more than enough, right? The other thing that we had to learn is that you have to save, and saving has to be intentional. It don't happen by happenstance, and you can wish it. Ooh, I wish I could save. I wish I could save. I wish I could save. And when you open your eyes, you ain't gonna have nothing in there. You're gonna have to save it. You actually have to put in the work to be able to save. A good principle, right, is to break your finances up into percentages. No matter what comes in, this percent I tithe, this percent I save, this percent goes to living, right? You can break that other part up into other percentages if you like, but that's basically how it goes. So as a rule, we see tithing as a principle and a way to learn how to save. So we tithe 10% and we save 10%. Now, there are seasons where we save 20% or we may save more, right? But you don't want to try to put so much in your savings that it's going to hurt you over here in this big area, because then what happens is you got to keep coming to your savings and you never get your savings saved up. So when you save something, but don't hurt yourself. Another little key, save your coins. Every time you break a dollar, put it in a jar. Put the change in a jar. You'd be surprised how much you can get in just a few short months or even in a year. And you save it all up, but you don't break it and spend it every time something happens or every time something you want, okay? If you need it, it's there, but then once a year you can go and just trade it and get that cash and put it in your savings, right? So those are things that we did. And you save from your profit. Now that's where a lot of people get in a lot of trouble. Like, so if you decide to go on and start selling stuff, right? Say you bought a hat for $5, you went and sold it for 20. Okay. You don't save 10% of the $20 because all 20 of that is not profit. You got to take out the money that you put the $5 to buy the hat, and you got to take out the money that you put to your expenses to ship the hat, right? And what you have left is profit. And from there is what you take your savings from. Because if you do it off the whole 20, you're going to find yourself beating yourself up against the head and not being able to figure out how come it's not working out and you're using all your savings. Okay. So that is something else. Let's see. I think I hit everything that I wanted to share with you with just for today. So I hope something in there was helpful for you. There's a lot more that I can share with you. I can even go into more details about these different things, but I want to tell you and encourage you, it's so good to get out of debt. It's going to take creativity. It's not going to feel all that good. Sometimes people might look at you and laugh at you, but in the back end, you get to laugh because you're sure-footed, especially in times of pandemic, especially in times of uncertainty, especially when you're going through health issues. You're on solid ground when the world is shaky. And what you have is surety, is sure. Okay? So I hope something in there was helpful for you. Remember, in all things at all times, do you. Until next time. Bye. Now, if you're a Bible believing Christian, I want to talk to you real quick. I ain't even got to tell you what's going on in our world today and that our world needs Jesus, right? We got to really be cautious about the world that we're passing down to our children and our children's children. And it concerns me. It concerns me the day that we're living in and in the direction that we're going in. So I'm fasting and I'm seeking God's face for our nation. And I'm asking you to join me because something happens in that agreement and in that corporate prayer. So I'm asking that you join me in prayer and crying out to God and asking Him to heal our land, right? Because we need it. And not just for our sake, we want it for our sake, but for our children and our children's children's sake. Would you agree with me in that? I'm not asking you to pray politics. I'm not asking you to pray the red or the blue. I'm asking you to pray the word of God, that the Lord would come and heal our land and infuse our land with His Spirit and have our land to be a place that we would want to raise our children in and pass down to our children. I hope you would do that with me. I would really appreciate it. Now, remember, in all things, do you. Until next time, bye.